The war had raged for 37 years. Entire star systems burned. The Galactic Concord, once a proud union of over 200 civilizations, was fractured, desperate, and dying. The enemy, Korthak Dominion, moved like a tidal wave, consuming everything. They were relentless, hive-minded, and utterly without mercy. Their weapons weren't more advanced. They were simply brutal, efficient, unyielding. The Concord had tried everything. Quantum bombs, plasma storms, bioplagues. Nothing worked. The Korthak adapted, devoured, and pressed on. Billions died. Refugees flooded surviving colonies. Peaceful species learned to kill or went extinct. Every month, another world was lost. Every council meeting began with silence and ended with screaming. And in all that time, one question remained like a splinter no one dared to touch. Where was Earth? Earth, the so-called anomaly, a species that rose from its cradle faster than any recorded in galactic history. Within 2 centuries of discovering faster-than-light travel, they reached technological parity with some of the Concord's oldest members. Their language, culture, and science spread like wildfire. And then nothing. 50 years ago, the Concord sent a diplomatic envoy. Earth declined the offer to join. "We're not ready," they said. "We prefer to observe." That was the last anyone heard. No ambassadors. No aid. No alliance. Just silence. Some believed Earth had collapsed. Others theorized internal wars or self-imposed isolation. A few whispered about something darker, preparation. As the war worsened, Earth's absence turned from curiosity to insult. In meetings behind closed doors, Earth was mocked. "They're just over-evolved primates," one Dravari senator spat. "They lack the unity, the discipline. Let them hide." A motion to send another delegation was shut down 3 times. The Concord didn't want to beg. Pride mattered, even at the edge of extinction. But desperation erodes ego. When the Korthak broke the Velian line, long considered the Concord's final defensive wall, something changed. 10 core worlds fell in 6 days. Hope became a luxury. Morale fractured. For the first time in decades, the Council whispered Earth's name not with derision, but with pleading. A scout ship was dispatched in secret. Its captain, Varnektal, was a veteran with nothing left to lose. He carried no weapons, just an ancient file marked Human Contact Protocol. He was never expected to return. And yet, 3 days later, a transmission arrived. It wasn't long. Just 5 words, burned into every Concord terminal simultaneously. "They are listening. Stand by." No encryption, no code, just presence, power, intent. The Council fell into chaos. Some called it a trick. Others said it was too late. But deep down, they all understood what had happened. Earth had heard, and more importantly, Earth had chosen to respond. For the first time in 37 years, the war felt different. The Korthak didn't know. Not yet, but the Concord did. Somewhere, far beyond the edge of the mapped sectors, something old and watching had just stood up, and everyone who had ever doubted Earth began to pray they were wrong. They came without fanfare. No parades, no announcements, just 30 ships, identical in design, matte black, sleek, silent. No visible weapons, no insignia, no names. They emerged from folded space just outside the Concord Central Command, hovering like a shadow above the stars. Sensors couldn't identify their propulsion. Scans returned gibberish. One engineer joked the ships didn't exist. No one laughed. To the Concord, they were underwhelming. 30 vessels? Against trillions? The Korthak would laugh them out of the void. A Virelian admiral scoffed. "This is the aid we begged for." A few council members demanded answers. Others stared in silence, unsettled by what they couldn't explain. Then came the transmission, not from the ships, but from every communications node across the Concord. It was a human voice, calm, emotionless, male. No name, no title, just a message. "You asked for help. You will have it." Concord Command demanded details. What were the terms? How many more ships were coming? What kind of troops, weapons, strategy? The human voice replied only, "This will take 5 hours." Confusion turned to irritation. 5 hours? What does that mean? The voice paused, then repeated, "This war will end in 5 hours. Prepare your observers." The Concord thought it was arrogance. Earth hadn't fought this war. They hadn't lost cities, families, species. They had no idea what they were dealing with. But that's when humanity revealed the truth. They had been watching. Since the first shot, every battle, every defeat, every tactic and countermeasure. They had studied the Korthak's neural architecture, their hive command chain, their internal biology, their communication pulses. Humanity hadn't ignored the war. They had mapped it in silence. "We do not engage in wars we don't understand," the voice said. "Now we understand." What followed was a briefing, if it could even be called that. No slides, no holosims, just facts. The location of every Korthak fleet, the vulnerabilities in their fractal armor, the precise neural frequency that controlled their central hives. Every vulnerability, every blind spot, every flaw. It was delivered with surgical confidence, as if they'd been planning this for decades, because they had. The human ambassador, if that's what he even was, arrived in person. He wore no uniform, just black, no weapons, no bodyguards. The council chamber fell into silence. One Concord elder asked a question everyone feared to voice. "If you could stop this, why now?" The human didn't blink. "Because now you'll listen." The ships began to move. Silently, not a single thrust signature. They vanished in intervals. First 3, then 5, then the rest. Concord Command scrambled to track them. They couldn't. One admiral muttered, "This isn't warfare. It's execution." The Council's last message to the human fleet was a question. "What do we do?" The reply was simple. "Observe. This isn't your war anymore." The first hour passed with nothing. Concord fleets, positioned in observation, reported no movement, no combat, no explosions. Korthak patrols continued their routes undisturbed. It was as if humanity had done nothing at all. Commanders grew nervous. Some believed they'd been duped. Others suspected technical failure. But then, reports started coming in, quiet, fragmented, impossible. Entire Korthak squadrons were going dark. No distress signals, no debris, no signs of battle. They just stopped existing. One by one, the Dominion's fleet signatures vanished from the tracking grid. Whole sectors blinked out like dying stars. In the second hour, the chaos began. The Korthak fleet formations broke down. Ships collided. Weapon systems turned on their own. Internal logs showed systems being overridden by foreign code. The virus was perfectly tailored, designed not to destroy, but to confuse. Korthak units began receiving conflicting orders. Attack, retreat, hold, fire on allies, ceasefire. Their hive mind, once an unstoppable war machine, fractured. By the third hour, the psychological war had started. Human ships never appeared. No warnings. No visible strikes. Only consequences. Precision kinetic weapons struck from unseen distances, moving so fast they didn't register until after the impact. Korthak dreadnoughts were split in half mid-maneuver. Their capital ships crumbled without a sound. There were no flashy energy beams, no prolonged battles, just terminal silence. On the surface of occupied worlds, human soldiers landed, not in battalions. Just one per drop zone, clad in black, no insignia, no facial expressions. They moved without wasted effort. With a flick of their hands, enemy weapons turned cold. With a glance, hardened Korthak warriors fell, not from bullets, from neural collapse. Every strike was deliberate. Every step was final. Korthak leaders tried to regroup. They failed. Their internal communications had been infiltrated. Their command structures, known to be unbreakable, were already gone. Human AI systems had cracked their frequencies and began broadcasting on their networks. And what they transmitted was devastating. A human voice. Calm, cold, repeating a single phrase, "This is mercy." By hour 4, Korthak resistance collapsed. Entire fleets surrendered without confrontation. Their instinct for domination was shattered by confusion and fear, a concept they'd never experienced. They were no longer predators. They were prey, and they knew it. One of the final transmissions from the Korthak, leadership begged for terms. The human reply was chillingly neutral. There are no terms. Minutes later, the Korthak homeworld vanished. Not bombed, not destroyed, erased. A silent sphere of nothingness where a planet once stood. No trace, no radiation, just vacuum. In the 5th hour, the 30 human ships returned to the Concord capital, untouched, unchanged, as if they'd never left. The same voice echoed across the council once more. The war is over. Do better. No declarations. No celebrations. Just an end. The galaxy's bloodiest war. Silence in 5 hours by a force no one truly understood. The silence that followed was not relief. It was awe and fear. The aftermath was not marked by triumph, but by silence. Across the galaxy, Concord world stood still. No cheering, no victory parades. Just a quiet, stunned realization. The war was over. In 5 hours, Earth had done what hundreds of species could not in nearly 4 decades. The Korthak Dominion, once feared as an eternal empire of destruction, was gone, not defeated, not negotiated with, erased. Concord leadership convened emergency sessions. They analyzed battle logs, intercepted transmissions, censored data, anything to explain what had happened. But there were gaps, massive gaps. Human ships didn't appear on most surveillance feeds. Their weapons left no traceable energy signatures. The neural virus they deployed was unrecognizable to every AI expert. Their soldiers? Unregistered biometrics, no known combat enhancements, no recorded injuries. Every attempt to understand came up short, and Earth offered no answers. The moment their ships returned, they left again. No request for compensation, no interest in territory, no follow-up communication. Just one final message broadcast across all Concord networks. Power is restraint. Remember that. Some saw it as wisdom, others as a warning. A few, perhaps more honest, saw it as a threat. Earth had displayed not just power, but restraint beyond comprehension. They had waited nearly 40 years, watching, preparing, choosing the exact moment when intervention would be absolute and irreversible. And then, just as easily, they had disappeared again. Speculation turned to fear. What else were they capable of? Was this their full strength, or just a glimpse? A Concord general, reviewing the erased Korthak homeworld, murmured, "This wasn't war. It was a test." Rumors began to spread, unofficial and proven but powerful, that Earth had weapons that could fold stars, that they developed predictive AI so advanced it bordered on omniscience, that they weren't just advanced, they were something else entirely. A new doctrine slowly emerged among surviving races. Never provoke Earth, not out of respect, out of survival. Civilizations that once dismissed humanity now built entire protocols around their potential responses. Children were taught cautionary tales. Soldiers whispered stories about black-armored ghosts. And everywhere, in the corners of military documents and intelligence briefings, a new phrase began to appear. In case of human response. In time, Earth became myth. The quiet force that ended the unendable war. The species that intervened not to conquer, but to correct. Yet beneath the surface, a darker question lingered. Why had they really waited? What would have happened if the Korthak hadn't crossed that final line? Perhaps the answer lay in Earth's silence, in the cold efficiency of their intervention, in the way they made no demands afterward, as if their message had nothing to do with victory and everything to do with warning. They didn't fight to win. They fought to end it. And now that the galaxy knew what that meant, everyone lived a little more carefully, because Earth was out there, watching still. And the next war might not get 5 hours.